Kakadosh Boker or Masechet Bava Batra Daf Kavdala Amud Aleph 24a1. We were just speaking about the entire concept that if it's going to be a case where there was different vineyards in between, if it came from the outside, since it was hopping, so it would not hop, right? Because it says as long as he turns around and he could still see its nest, so therefore it's going to continue hopping. But if not, it does not continue going. That's what we mentioned yesterday. That's what we spoke about yesterday. So Amar Abaye. Abaye says, we also learned this. When you have blood which is found in the hallway. Now here obviously we're talking about the vaginal canal. Sfekot tameh, it's safek, is going to be tameh. Why? Cheskato mina mekor, because that's a chazakah that it came from the mekor, from the uterus. He says, 1 second. But there's the aliyah, right, which is even closer than the, right, it's closer to the vaginal canal than the uterus. So therefore, why in the world, meaning here's a proof that we go rov vekarov, we're going after rov. But since the majority of the blood comes from the uterus, it goes from there. But we're not going, right, and that's what we're saying, rov vekarov, olchim achar rov. Okay? So now he comes and he says, Elmaleh, rovu matsui ka'amarta, rovu matsui leka lemandama. He says, on this case, you also have rov, and you also have matsui. Right? What does that mean? Rov just means the majority of the blood. Majority of the blood comes from the uterus. Plus, it's common for it to come. The frequency, it's common for it to come once a month. It always comes from the uterus. So therefore, it's rov v'matsui. Rov and matsui. He says, however, though, rov matsui leka lemandamar. There's nobody that will go after karov when you have rov matsui. Meaning, when you have also rov and also matsui, for sure you're going to have to. Everybody holds that. Nobody goes against that. The Tani Rabbi, just like Rabbi taught, dama nimtza beprosdor, blood which is found in the prosdor. The chayvim alav biat mikdash, and you're going to be chayav biat mikdash, meaning that she came into the Bet HaMikdash, she would be obligated to bring a hatat, just like a person that's tameh that came into the Bet HaMikdash. The sorofim alav et truma, and they would burn the truma as well. Okay, fine. So Amar Rava, so the Gemara comes and it says, Shema mina mid Rabbi Chia atlat. From this Rabbi Chia, we learn 3 different halachot. Remember, what did Rabbi Chia say? Rabbi Chia said, blood that's in the prosdor, you're chayav on bi'at mikdash, and sorfim et truma. Yeah, listen to this. Says, we learn 3 things. Shema mina, number 1. What are we going to learn? Rov vekarov olchim achar rov. When you have majority and proximity, you go after the majority. Shema mina, number 2, ruba doraita. It's doraita, right? Because obviously, in order to come, right, and so you can't burn the truma. Here you're burning truma. You can't burn truma unless it's doraita. You understand? Because if not, then you would just get rid of it. But you can't just burn truma, right, unless it's doraita. Ushma mina, and we're also going to learn from here. Ata lediri zera. We go like Rabbi Zera, the Amar Rabbi Zera, that says Rabbi Zera, Afal pi shel daltot medina ne'ulot, even though the doors of the city are going to be closed, and therefore there's nobody that comes from other places. So it comes out, there's not a rov acher. So for example, let's say you have the majority of the stores that sell kosher meat, right? You're still allowed to come and eat the meat. Ta'isha, because a woman is like dalte medinot neulot damya. It's like that the doors are all closed, right? Because there's only one rov, right? That the majority of the blood comes from the uterus. And still, we still go after the rov. So it comes out that even in a case where you have that there's no rov from the world, meaning there's no rov, an external rov. It's only one rov. We still go after that rov. So that's the pshat of Rabbi Zerah. Okay, fine. V'har Rava hu de ka'amar rov matsui, right? Leka mandama. He says, 1 second, but I thought we were talking about rov matsui, and here there's nobody that comes, right, and is going to say such a thing to do with rov and matsui. Yeah, so he says, right? Hada ber Rava me'ahi. Rava retracted from that. What does that mean? He retracted and he says that the Mishnav Dam, which is blood found in the prosdor, is actually a proof to Rabbi Chanina, just like Abaye said. Itman. Okay, we're in the middle of Kavdal Mudale, 24a in the middle. Itman, it was stated. Chavit Chetzafa Banar. If you have a barrel of wine which is floating in the Nahar, in the river, Amar Rav says, Nimtzet keneged ir sheruba Yisrael mutar. Remember, yain could be a problem of yain nesech. So therefore, if you're going to find it opposite a city of a Jews, so it's going to be, right, mutar. Keneged ir sheruba nochrin asira. If it's going to be opposite a city, the majority are goyim, it's going to be asur. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, afilu nimtzet keneged sheruba Yisrael asira. Even if it's going to be opposite, right, where there's a Yisrael, it's going to be asur. Why? Emur ihi dikra atai. I'm going to say that what is I could say that it came from I dikira. I dikira, dikra, is basically a place where, right, there's no Jews. So since it's coming from this place where there's no Jews, obviously this wine is going to be prohibited. So says the Gemara, lema b'dereb Chanina kami bageh. Why don't we just say this is machloket and Rabbi Chanina? The more itle Rabbi Chanina, which means that Rav and Shmuel are arguing Rabbi Chanina because Shmuel holds, right, that it's going to be asur, even if it's found in front of a city of Israel. Why? Because he holds like Rabbi Chanina that rov vekarov olchim echar rov, and therefore, since the majority of the places, right, is going to come. So one second, so it comes from a goy, and therefore it's going to be asur. Umor let Rabbi Chanina, and Rav that says that you're allowed to, he argues on Rabbi Chanina, and he holds we go after karov. Meaning, do we go after the rov, which the rov is the goyim, or are we going after the karov, and here it's the karov, the Yudim? So therefore, it could come out that this is machloket Rabbi Chanina, Rav and Shmuel, right? Shmuel prohibits, and Rav permits. Rav is going like karov, and Shmuel is going after rov. Answers the Gemara, no, incorrect. Why? Everybody holds of this, of Rabbi Chanina. Meaning, everybody holds that rov and karov, olchim achar harov. We go after the majority, right? So what's the machloket here? The more savari mita de mahayik dikra ata. One of them holds that if it came from, which is Rav, if it came from Mahai dikra, akulev shurev mitbale. He says it would have actually come and it would have drowned the barrel of wine, and therefore, because it's impossible that it would have come all the way down here. Umor savar, and the other one holds charifa dinara nakavatai. Sometimes it could happen that it fell into the middle of the river, and therefore, where it's basically it has a very strong stream, and therefore, in such a case, it would bring it all the way down here, right, without any, what's it called, like sinking or without any of these things. Okay, until here we're clear. Okay. Hahu habza dechamra v'ishtakach bepardesa deolah. There was a barrel of wine which was found in the kerem of Olah, in a vineyard of Olah. So therefore, we don't know if it was stolen, right? And therefore, it's a surbana, or it was brought from another kerem, and therefore it's mutar bana. Remember, you're in a kerem which is a surbana. It's Olah. So now the question is, what goes on over here? So he says like this. He says, Sharia Ravina, right? So Ravina came and he said, you could have it, right? We're not going to suspect that maybe it was, right? It was going to be stolen from this one, okay? So Lema Mishum the Savala de Rabbi Chanina. He says, why don't we hold of Rabbi Chanina? Why? Where's the karov? The karov is from the same kerem. Now the same kerem is Olah. Where's the rov? From other kramim. The majority of kramim are not Olah. So if a rov a karov, right? According to Ravina, he's obviously going like, right? What? He's going like rov a karov. Ulchim achar rov. So answers the Gemara. Shane hatam. It's different over there. The mignav mina. If it was stolen from it, atznu begavel lo metznei. You never usually come and you'll never usually come and hide it in the place where you steal it. It's not common. Yeah. Once in a while they'll do it just to trick them or whatever, and then afterwards they'll come and then they'll take it. You understand? Meaning they'll steal it, they'll move it another place. Now they think it's stolen, and then they'll come and they'll right, because maybe they weren't able to take it out all the way. Sometimes they'll do that, but the majority of the times, if you're going to come and you're not going to find it in the same place, right? So therefore, he comes and he says it's not normal. But when that's only going to be to do with wine. Aval inve matzah, but if it's going to be the grapes, that yes. Meaning the grapes, you would, why? He says, because the anavim, maybe they were stolen b'shata batzib, and therefore there's no durche anavim. So therefore it could be that there's no yain which is going to be found there. Okay? So fine. So he says this is going to be davka, right? Wine, but not anavim. Hanau zika de chamre. There's barrel or flasks of wine. Ishtachan be'kupai, that is found between the gifanim, between the grapes of Israel. Shadinu Rava said, permitted, no problem. There's no problem of yain nesech. So so one second. That means obviously he's not going like Ibn Chanina, because here it's the karov is because it's inside of a kerem of Israel, but the majority is that it's from the outside, so and that belongs to Goyim. So says the Gemara, Shanei Hatam, it's different over there, right? He says the ruba, right? Kavdala damubet, the ruba the shvuchae Israelinu. He says the majority of the people that they come and they're going to put their wine into these jugs are going to be Yisraelim in order to come and to sell it, right, to the Goyim or to whoever it is. So therefore he comes and he says, that's why it belongs to them. Okay, v'hanemile, one of these words, beravreve, only on big jugs. Zutre, but small ones, emor ovre drachim naful. We're going to say that it came from the ovre drachim. It came from the people that were going back and forth. Now, if you're going to tell me that there's big ones with it, meaning there's big ones and small ones, then I'm going to say that really they were placed on the chamor, right, of the mukhre yain in order to come. And then when you have two different ones, one big and one small, he comes and he says it was only there just to make it leveled on the hamor. Okay, so we're not going to suspect that it came from other people. Fine. Mishnah kavdala demubet. Okay. Marchikim et ha'ilah min ha'ir 25 amah. You have to distance the tree from the city 25 amot. Uvecharuch shikma, when we're talking about these types of trees, which is basically the carob tree and the sycamore. Yeah? Shikma, sycamore. By the sycamore tree. Hamishim amah. It's going to be 50 amot, not 25, 50 amot. Abba Shaul Omer, Abba Shaul says, Kol ilan srak, hamishim amah. Any type of an ilan srak is always going to be hamishim amah. Why? Because an ilan srak is that it doesn't give fruits. So since it doesn't give fruits, it's not that nice. So therefore he comes and he says, you always have to distance it 50 amot from the city. Now, imayid kadma, if the city came first, kotzetz, so therefore the Bala Ilana is obligated to come and to cut it down. Yeah, and then what happens? You don't even have to give money. But if the tree came first, he cuts down the tree, but then he has to give him the money. Now we have a doubt. So you don't have to do it. Why? Right, which makes sense. Okay. Says the Gemara, what's the reasoning why we have to distance the tree from the city, the 25 amot or the 50? Amara Ula says because of the beauty of the city, which means that obviously, right, we're not talking about the beautiful palm trees that they come and they try to import them right into Gaza and all these places. You understand? And then we're not talking about that. You understand? What's so funny? Yeah, we just said because of the beauty of the city. So it means when they're going to start importing these plants, these trees, we know what's beauty. So therefore, it's not going to be beautiful if they're going to put plants or trees. So therefore, it has to be for the beauty of the city. So ask the Gemara, why don't you just bring a proof from that? You're not allowed to make a field into a migrash, right? Which basically it's empty, right? Or a migrash, a sadeh, which means you cannot change, right, the dynamics of a planted field to a not planted field to planted. You can't do these things. So answers the Gemara Lotzicha, what are we dealing with? The Rabbi Eliezer, at least going from the Rabbi Eliezer, the Amar that he says, you are allowed to do that. But only because of Noya'ir, that's why you're not allowed to do it. Meaning because of the beauty of the city, the aesthetics and how it's supposed to look, you're not allowed to do that. Or Rabbanan, and according to the rabbis also. Yes, we said that if it's a not fruit tree, it's worse. You need 50 amot. You need double. That's what it said in the Mishnah. Because it's not as nice. Fruits, at least, looks like a nice tree. It's not.
Like a fruit tree of another color. You can't cut it, right?
Yeah, but it's nothing to do with it. It's talking about the person that he's planting it. It's not talking about the sort of cutting down trees. So according to the rabbis that they say, one of these words, right? Zraim, only to do with zraim. Avalilanot, but to do with trees, avdinan, you do it. Vehacha, and over here, mishum lo, because of the beauty of the city, that's why you're not allowed to do it. So says the Gemara, how do you know there's a difference between planting and trees? How do you know, like, I could have fruits or vegetables, whatever, but not trees? What's the difference? Right? The Tanya was learned in a Braita Karpaf, right, which is more than a betza time, shukaf l'didav, which is going to be surrounded like a house. Nizru rubo, if the majority is going to be planted with seeds, hareu kegina, it's like a garden, and therefore you're not allowed to be metaltel inside of it. Nitar rubo, if the majority is going to be planted with trees, remember that whenever you say notea, it means a tree. Whenever it says zore'a, it's like not zraim. So areu kechatzer mutar. So then it's going to be like a chatzer, and therefore if it's going to be a chutzer, it's going to be mutar. So there's going to be a difference between a gina and a chatzer. Here it's going to be mutar or asur. So therefore, right, we're actually learning from here that only by planting of the zra'im is it mevatel a place of diyut, meaning that now you don't live there. But to do in the tiyat ilanot, we do not say such a thing. There's the Gemara. We're by the two dots where it says as follows: V'ima'id kadma. What happens if the city came first? So what do? Right? You just cut the tree, because you don't have to pay him. The guy did it wrong. He went and he started planting a tree where he's not supposed to. So mashna gabe bor. What's the difference between a bor that we learned shekotzetz v'noten damim? That if the bor came before the ilan, the baal ilan has to be kotzetz, right? It's his ilan, but the baal bor still has to give him money. Why over here do we say kotzetz v'noten? Meaning, why is it that if I came and I put right the tree, so I have to cut down the tree, but the baal bor has to pay me? Because I just cut down my tree. Now, why over here by the city I don't get money? So Amaravuna, Rav Kana comes and he says, Kidra de beshut velo chamima velo karira. He says the tashila v'kedera of shutafim, it will never get hot, it'll never get cold. Why? Because each one is somech al sheni. And therefore what happens is it never gets done. So to here, if you're going to come and you're going to put the tashlum on the bnei ha'ir, each one is going to come and is going to say, okay, fine, somebody else is going to do it. Right? And therefore, nothing will ever happen. Right? And therefore, the city stays ugly. So therefore, the rabbis came and they instituted, cut it down, no money. Why? Because they don't want to know, because each one, he should play. You know how many times this happens? I come and I tell him, no, let him pay for it. When he pays, I'll pay. Well, when he pays, I'll pay. You start. You be the gever. All of a sudden, nobody's the gever. No, they want and they do it. Fine. Umay kushya, says the Gemara. What exactly is the question? He goes, I don't understand the question. One is a zek of the yachid. The other one is a zek of the rabbin. Meaning, right, here, we're talking about a nezek, which is done to the entire rabbin. So that's why they're going to be patur from paying. Over there, he's causing nezek to a yachid. So there's a big difference. Yeah? So he says, Elayitman, but rather, right, that which Rav Kahana was said as seifa itman, was said on the seifa. Ima ilan kadam, if the tree came first, you cut it down and you give the money. So so why don't we just say, the guy can come and say, you know what, you guys give me the money and then I'll take it down. You know, like many times, pay me up first and then I'll take it down. Yeah, why is it that he's obligated to cut it even before getting the money? So Amar Rav Kahana comes and he says, what does that mean? The same thing. Meaning that if we're going to come and we're going to have to say, they're all shutafim, they all have to pay. So now who's going to actually start paying? It takes a long time. It's not going to work. They'll never be done. Fine. Next two dots. Safek ze kadam, safek ze kadam. If you don't know which one came first, the tree or the city, so you cut it down and you don't give money. What's the difference between board? You said that you don't have to cut down the tree at all. And here you do have to cut it down. So says the Gemara, there, right? Maybe you don't have to cut it down at all. Because if the tree came first, so you don't have to cut it down at all. So Sfeiko Nami, so Safek also, so we don't tell him to cut it down. Hacha, but over here, that for sure he has to cut it down, right? Sfeiko Nami, we're going to tell him to cut it down. Mishum demin, to do with money. Amnina, we're going to tell him, the shekol. Bring a raya and you take it. Everyone understood? One more time. Somebody comes, you planted, you have the board, you have the tree. Which one came first? So now, if the tree came first, does he have to do anything? Wallo, he leaves his tree there. In this case, by the city, does he have to cut it down? He always has to cut it down. No matter what, he has to cut it down. The only question is, do you give him money or not? So he comes and he says, so therefore, in our case, that anyway he has to cut it down, we tell him to cut it down. In that case, to do the board, he might not be able to, he doesn't need to cut it down. So I'm not going to tell him to cut it down. In our case, so then what's the difference? Whether he gets money or doesn't get money. So tell him, bring a proof that yours came afterwards, it came first, and then we pay you. But until then, you have to cut it down. Okay? Fine. Ma? מחוץ לעיר, 25 שמה. Yeah? Fine. Ma? Says the Mishnah, מרחיקים את הגורן קבוע מן העיר 50 אמה. A person should distance the goren kavua. Yeah, we're talking about a fixed granary from the city, 50 amot. ולא יעשה אדם גורן קבוע בתוך שלו. He should never make a fixed granary within his field. אלא אם כן יש 50 אמה לכל רוח. Unless he has 50 amot for every single ruach, because if not, the mot is going to fall on the neighbors' things and it's going to dry them up. Meaning it's going to come and cause damage to the neighbors. Because basically what happens is that if it goes in the air during the time of the winnowing is, like when you're separating the chaff from the straw, and then what happens is that it's going to damage all the other things. He also has to distance the granary from the netiot of his friend, from the plantings of his friend, or from the need, which is basically the sadeh need is a plowed field, in order that it should not damage. Says the Gemara, Maishna Reisha or Maishna Seifa. What's the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa? Why is it that in both cases, right, which is basically the Goren from the Kavua Minaid, and it says Lo Yaseh Adam Goren Kavua, right? We need a requirement of 50 amot. In the last thing, which was Marchik Niyotov Shel Chavero, it's less. It's basically Bichtei Shelo Yazik. Why the first two cases it says 50 amot, and the third case was Kedei Shelo Yazik? So Amar Abaye says Seifatan the Goren Shen Kavua. We're talking about a Goren Shen Kavua, and therefore since it's a Goren Shen Kavua, you don't have to do 50 amot. It's only just Shelo Yazik. So Hechidan, what's considered then a Goren Shen Kavua? Amar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina Kol She'eno Zore Berachat. If you're not using a rachat, the rachat was the utensil, right? Basically, it doesn't have this it says over here. You don't need to use the rachat, which is like a wooden utensil, which is made for the winnowing. So therefore, and it's done in its own. So therefore, that's what it's shot, that it's not kavua. Ravashi comes and he gives another explanation. Matam kaman. No, it's not giving you a different measurement. It's giving you the reason. Meaning, my tama, what's the reasoning why marchikin goren kavua minayir hamishim ama? Kedei shelo yazik, in order that it shouldn't be mazik. Meaning, it's not giving you another measurement. We thought at the beginning, the Havamina was, the Mishnah says, 50 amot for the goren kavua, plus 50 amot every single thing whenever you're going to make a goren inside your field. And then, when you're talking about from the netiotav shel chavero niro, kedei shelo yazik, it's a different measurement. No, it's a reasoning. It's not a different measurement. It's a reasoning. So, so we're going to ask a question on this. Yeah, marchikim migoren kavua minay 50 ama. Here you have 50 ama. Uchshem shemarchikim. Yeah, he says just like you're going to be marchikim. Yeah, 50 ama. Diluav, kishuav, metiotav, nido shel chavero, kedei shelo yazik. In order that it should not mizik. So here, though, right? He comes and he says it is Bishma Ravashi. I understand according to Ravashi, that's how he's explaining it. It makes sense because that's the explanation. That's the reason. Kedei shelo yazik. But according to Abaye, what's the pshat then? Yeah? Why? What did Abaye say? Abaye said we're talking about a goren sheno kavua. Here, what are we talking about a goren sheno kavua? Here it's talking about a goren kavua. Okay? So, says the Gemara, Kasha, you're right. That's a good question. We don't have an answer. It's a beautiful question. Yeah, it's a pele of a question. Okay? Fine. Okay. Next. Bishlema mikushuav. I understand from the Kishuim, he comes and he says, Umiduluav, de azilav kavata blibeum tzavele. He comes and he says, B'zavak, which is in the motz, is going to come and it's going to go and it's going to dry it up. But from the plowed field, what do you care? So Amar Rabbi Abba Razal Tadiv Rabbi Abba Razutra Mipene She'ose Oto Gelal, because he's making it like it's a fertilizer, and therefore once it's making it like fertilizer, it's going to be mikalkel the zra'im, the kam, afterwards. So therefore, because basically if you have too much fertilizer, it's not good. So because it's going to destroy the fertilizer, which is going to come afterwards, so that's why we said that it's not going to be good.